By the late 1970s, DC comic book characters had leapt into the living rooms of millions of television viewers in a series of live-action TV shows. And of course, DC had a certain legendary film adaptation just around the corner. For Marvel, it might have been a bit demoralizing. At the time, their only live-action TV adaptation were the Spider-Man shorts in the kids' show, The Electric Company, which was a good show, but come on, I'm sure they were itching for some of that prime-time street cred. But that would all change in 1977 with a pair of prime-time TV movies that would lead to ongoing series, The Incredible Hulk and Marvel's flagship character, Spider-Man. Marvel's art director at the time was John Romita Sr., an artist whose name had become synonymous with Spider-Man. So what did he think of Spidey's newly found live-action fame? Well, here's a hint. He didn't like it.
Live-action films was so dull that the hair on the back of my neck used to just stand up.
And we got it straight from jazzy John Romita himself, and he'll also tell us the story about how the TV producers tried to trick Stan Lee, and how we almost had a black costume Spider-Man on TV 7 years before the comic books. That story is coming up next. Hello heroes, 4Kate here with a look back at the first full-fledged live-action TV adaptation of Spider-Man, the 1977 CBS television series, and the reaction from seminal Spider-Man artist himself, John Romita Sr. Prior to 1977, Spider-Man had only appeared in live action in the children's TV show The Electric Company in a series of shorts called Spidey Super Stories.
Spider-Man, where are you coming from, Spider-Man? Nobody knows who you are.
Again, not that they were bad. Sure, they were extremely simplified for kids, but are fondly remembered by kids of the era, and The Electric Company is also a much-beloved series. I have to admit, at age 4 or 5, these were one of my first exposures to Spider-Man, and I thought they were awesome. Well, it turns out Romita remembers them fondly, too.
Well, the Electric Company versions I thought were very clever and very cute and very well done. And I had a great relationship with the Electric Company. I did a series of Spidey Super Stories with them, following up those Spider-Man appearances, and had a wonderful, I was so proud of that period. We did some great stuff for young people's reading in those days. Some of those issues. Yeah, those are great books.
Yes, the comic series done in conjunction with the TV show was also simplified and toned down for younger readers. It's probably most well known today for giving the world the Thanos copter, providing today's pop culture with an unending source of memes. But some of the stories were done pretty straight and were readable, and there was some good artwork. For example, Romita himself did most of the covers for the first 20 issues. But surely it was primetime glory the Marvel Bullpen was waiting for, and in September 1977, The Amazing Spider-Man debuted with a TV movie that served as a backdoor pilot for a potential series. But unfortunately, there wasn't much glory. The drama and heart from the comics had been sucked out of the production. Much of the writing was flat, and there was hardly anything from the comics in it other than Spider-Man himself, and it looked like the show had an incredibly low budget, or perhaps the production company just didn't specialize in filming action shows. I didn't see many action-adventure shows in the company's credits prior to their production of Spider-Man, but regardless, as far as Romita was concerned, it just didn't work. And in 2001, when I asked him about the then fast-approaching Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, he recalled the old 70s TV show. Oh, and I should mention, he calls the TV show the Turner Movies. That threw me for a loop at first, but it turns out he was calling them that because he had recently seen some of the episodes airing as TV movies on the Turner Broadcasting System, today just known as the cable channel TBS.
Turner 2-hour movies, which I thought were terrible.
Turner movies?
Well, weren't they? Well, they were shown on Turner.
Oh.
I don't know who made those movies.
Okay, you're talking about the 70s.
The Nicholas Hammond movie, TV, 2-hour movies.
Okay, one more.
Were they 2-hour movies? Or they just seemed like 2 hours?
Yeah.
And the They were the epitome of what I didn't want to see on the screen. They were badly done. The costumes were silly, and the villains were mundane. I didn't like them very much.
Even though Nicholas Hammond certainly was.
He was a good Peter Parker looking, but everybody acted like they were walking in their sleep. The whole terrible. No colorful costume, and you're in an office. You're in a subway, a hotel suite, and office buildings, and I was saying, what the hell are we doing here? I know that the live action films were so dull that the hair on the back of my neck used to just stand up.
Romita went on to tell me an amazing and obscure bit of comic adaptation history that the TV show's producers tried to trick Stan Lee into letting them change the costume to black.
The 70s live action, the only memory I have of that is that they tried to pull the wool over Stan's eyes. Have you interviewed Stan? No. Stan comes into me one day, when was that, in the mid-70s? 77. And says, they're going to go with black and red on Spider-Man. And I said, why? Actually, the first thing was, it was really supposed to be a black and red costume. But you couldn't use gray highlights on the black. In other words, you had to have highlights on it to get some kind of form. So they used blue highlights, which was traditional. Black suits generally had blue highlights. They told him they couldn't use blue on Spider-Man because it was too expensive. They had to go blue. And he said, it's got something to do with the mat. And I said, Stan, they do daily filming, videotaping of Spider-Man on the Electric Company. You remember those? He's shown swinging all over the comic pages, all over superimposed on live action stuff. And I said, they got him in blue and red. They have to shoot that against the mat. He said, what is the mat? I said, well, the mat is just a painted wall, I said, if it's blue, you can't use blue against it because it'll look transparent. I said, so they painted the wall green. I think the electric company made it green or whatever. And he said, you're telling me that they're saying that it's too expensive to paint the damn mat wall? I said, I think that's what they're telling you. Well, he almost blew a fuse. He got on the phone and chewed those guys a new behind, I'm telling you. He was mad. They were going to let him go with a solid black costume and clash with the image that people had seen. Because there was less and less black being used in those years. It was almost a blue and red costume like Superman. And so he straightened that out and they made it blue. I think that was my only connection with the Turner movies.
That blew my mind. As an 11-year-old kid in 1984, one of the reasons I started actually buying my own comics was the shocking development of Spider-Man getting his black alien costume. I couldn't believe that we almost had a black costume Spider-Man on the television series. I mean, sure, it would have looked like a mess, nothing like our artist rendition, and certainly not the design from the 80s comic. So I'm glad Romita helped Stan figure out he was getting played and forced them to do the real costume. But man, just think if there was some test footage of a black version. And of course, maybe they were just gonna make the blue parts of the costume black, which we've actually seen recently in the MCU. That would have been really interesting to see in 1970s era costume design. And of course, television producers were ironically later able to change one of Marvel's red superhero costumes to black when Daredevil appeared in one of the 80s Incredible Hulk TV movies, and they gave him a black costume, which is crazy, right? I mean, who would ever think you could do Daredevil without the red costume? Thanks for watching what John Romita thought about the 1970s Spider-Man TV series and the Electric Company Spider-Man and the black costume that almost was. We'll see you here next time on Hero Journalism.